Dad told me, "You're suspended until you apologize." So I emptied my office and left a resignation letter instead. My sister walked in smiling, then froze. Dad saw my empty desk, and his face collapsed. Cut. How did it reach this point? My name is Alara, and for more than 6 years I had poured everything I had into my role at the company: late nights, impossible deadlines, entire departments built from scratch with nothing but grit and discipline. I wasn't loud, dramatic, or attention-seeking. I worked quietly, consistently, the kind of steady presence that kept things running even when nobody noticed. And that was the problem: nobody in my family ever did notice. To them, I was background. Reliable, predictable, useful, but invisible. Especially to my sister, who treated the company like a stage and me like the prop standing behind her. Dad only ever saw her his favorite, his pride, the one who could do no wrong. If something went well, it was because of her. If something went wrong, somehow it was always my fault. That was the dynamic I'd grown up with, and the same dynamic I'd carried into the company. I built so much here, yet to my own family, I was still treated like an afterthought. In my family, praise was a currency, and it was spent entirely on my sister. Every meeting, every family dinner, every company event, the spotlight automatically belonged to her. If she suggested an idea, it was brilliant. If I suggested the same thing, it was too risky or not practical. My work lived in the shadows while her mistakes echoed loudly through the halls, yet somehow she always emerged as the hero. I was the one who stayed late fixing the promises she couldn't keep, rewriting the emails she messed up, handling the clients she frustrated, only to watch her proudly take credit for the damage control I performed in silence. It wasn't a secret either. Everyone at the company knew the favoritism existed: every department head, every board member, every assistant who watched the pattern repeat year after year. But nobody said anything. They just looked at me with quiet sympathy, and at my sister with the kind of forced respect people reserve for someone protected from consequences. Everything unraveled the day my sister made yet another reckless promise. She'd guaranteed a major client an impossible deadline, a 6-week delivery for a project that realistically required 3 months of development. And, as always, she hadn't bothered to ask the people who would actually have to build it. So I did what any responsible department head would do. I reached out to the client directly, professionally clarifying the real timeline to protect the company from a lawsuit when the inevitable failure hit. It was calm, factual, necessary, but in her mind, it was betrayal. She burst into my office furious, accusing me of sabotaging her authority in front of the client. She didn't care about accuracy or risk or the team, only her ego. And without asking a single question, without reading a single email, Dad walked in and took her side instantly. Just like he always did. One reckless promise from her, one responsible correction from me, and somehow I became the problem. The emergency board meeting felt less like a professional discussion and more like a family execution. Executives sat frozen around the long conference table, pretending not to witness the mess unfolding in front of them. My sister sat beside Dad, chin lifted, confidence radiating off her like she'd already declared victory. Dad didn't waste time. He looked at me with that cold, unquestionable authority and said, "You're suspended until you apologize to your sister." My sister's smirk widened, certain she had finally put me in my place. Everyone in the room held their breath, waiting for me to argue, to defend myself, to plead, because that's what they expected after years of watching me swallow injustice. But instead, I simply nodded and said, "All right." No fight. No explanation. No emotion. The room fell into stunned silence. My calm acceptance hit harder than any outburst ever could, and for the first time, they all realized something had shifted. Instead of sulking through my suspension, I walked back to my office and began packing my things slowly, calmly, almost peacefully. Every award, every file, every reminder of the years I had built that department came down from the shelves with a clarity I'd never felt before. Then, once everything was boxed, I sat at my desk and sent the email I'd prepared in silence for months. No drama. No accusations. Just facts, timelines, Documentation, resource reports, budget trails, and every instance where my sister had overpromised what development could never deliver. I sent it to the board, the department heads, and the clients affected. Within minutes, the panic ripple started. The board members began calling emergency huddles. The company lawyer turned pale reviewing the email chain. Clients forwarded my message back to management demanding explanations. And my sister, the one who smirked proudly at my suspension, watched her confidence drain from her face as she realized every truth she'd hidden behind was now out in the open. Her smirk didn't just disappear. It died. By the next morning, my office looked like I had never existed. The desk was empty, the shelves bare, everything gone except a single sheet of paper placed neatly in the center, my resignation letter. The moment my sister saw it, her face drained of color. Before she could even process what it meant, the company lawyer rushed in, out of breath and pale as chalk. "Tell me you didn't post it," he gasped, already knowing I had. And then Dad arrived. One look at the empty desk, the resignation letter, and the chaos unfolding around him, and it finally hit him. The damage tearing through the company wasn't because I left. It was because of the years he spent protecting the wrong child. The fallout was immediate. Without me quietly holding everything together, the company buckled under the weight of my sister's long-ignored mistakes. Clients began pulling out one by one, furious about the impossible promises she had made. Deadlines collapsed, projects stalled, and the board, once silent witnesses, finally turned their anger toward the real problem. My sister was stripped of her title and pushed into a meaningless role, her confidence shattered. Dad, overwhelmed and unprepared, found himself trying to repair years of damage he never bothered to see. Meanwhile, I walked into a better job, higher pay, real respect, and a life that finally felt like mine, proof that sometimes walking away isn't losing, it's winning. Months later, when the dust finally settled and the company was half the size it used to be, Dad showed up with the one thing he had never offered me before: understanding. He saw the favoritism, the imbalance, the damage he'd allowed, and for the first time, he admitted it. He asked me to come back, to help fix what was falling apart. But I didn't hesitate. I refused. Not out of anger, but with the calm certainty of someone who finally knows her worth. I had built a new life, a career where I was respected, a space where I didn't have to fight for basic recognition, a future that was mine alone. And that was the real revenge. Not destroying them, but choosing myself.